toxic masculinity.
Trump says he'd consider Governor DeSantis as a 2024 running mate. Ooh, I love this. Now, I haven't read this story, guys, so I'm as excited as you are to read about this. Let's have a look. Trump says Florida Governor DeSantis would be considered as a 2024 running mate. Now, not only do I think he should be considered, I don't understand why he wouldn't just be the choice, right? But, it's one of these things where even if it's a long time until 2024, first of all. There could be somebody else, some other superstar that emerges that's better than DeSantis. DeSantis could undergo some kind of like a scandal or something like that. Who knows? And also, you just don't announce who your running mate is going to be this early on. I mean, you wouldn't do it. You got to wait until just the right moment, then you announce it, and you get some press out of it. But it's nice that he's giving that hint because we all love Governor DeSantis. What an awesome dude. Okay, so Trump revealed on Thursday he is 100% thinking about running for president again in 2024 and would certainly consider Florida Governor Ron DeSantis as his running mate. You know what I was thinking the other day? So yesterday we had that Biden speech to Congress that I think approximately 10 Americans watched, and they were all Republicans because we all wanted to just report, do YouTube shows about what a moron Biden was. But Tim Scott, as you guys know, was given the opportunity to refute or give the rebuttal, the conservative response to what Biden was saying. I forget what they call it. Anyway, Tim Scott's Republican response, was beautiful. It was beautiful. It was elegant. It was perfect. It was, for whatever reason, that we have this idea now, both the Democrats and the Republicans, that any time the opposition president presents this wasn't the State of the Union, I don't know what it was, address to Congress or State of the Union or any of these kind of speeches, that we need to have a black person respond. We think we get a little bit of leverage out of a black person responding. I think it's a kind of a silly thing. You should just get the best person to respond, right? But I think in this case, Tim Scott was the best person to respond. I mean, he just did such a beautiful job. And the stuff that he said was fantastic. Really did a fantastic job with it. But despite the fact that Tim Scott, I think, was essentially the best person we had to respond, I mean, with regard to how well he responded, I think there's somebody who would have had a bigger impact if we would have been able to get him to respond. And that was President Donald Trump. If we would have got Donald Trump to respond and, with a rally, like let's say you get a big crowd and they're all cheering and Donald Trump has his response to Joe Biden's thing, and that's the official GOP response. Holy cow. We would have just made Joe Biden look like a total fool. I mean, Joe Biden does that on his own, obviously. But Donald Trump could have really poured rocket fuel onto that fire. You know what I mean? Like, just imagine imagine the response to Biden got a bigger audience than Biden's initial address to Congress. I mean, that would have been spectacular. And could you imagine the crowds? And I mean, it just would have been great. So they should have done that. I don't know why they didn't do that. That's kind of weird. I mean, of all the alternate choices, I think Tim Scott was good and he did an excellent job. But gosh, I mean, we should have had Trump responding there. That's my thought on that. Let's see here. The former president made the comments during an exclusive interview on Mornings with Maria Bartiromo. Awesome. On Thursday, the morning after President Biden's address to joint session of Congress. So this morning, he said this. I didn't see that show. During the most high-profile speech of the nation yet, on the eve of his 100th day in office. 100 days of complete and total uselessness. Okay. Trump noted that DeSantis is a friend of mine and a great guy. And remember, Trump lives in Florida. DeSantis is Trump's governor, weirdly. Let's see here. I endorsed Ron, and after I endorsed him, he took off like a rocket ship, Trump continued. He's done a great job as governor. A spokesman for DeSantis did not immediately respond to Fox News' request for comment. Former President Trump also discussed his platform for a potential 2024 run, which he said would include protecting the Second Amendment, the border, tax increases, and the energy industry. Could you imagine if Trump got back in and was like, all right, finish the dang border wall, I mean, and we actually finished the thing. weirdly, Joe Biden is required to continue work on the border wall. I think that's hilarious. I love that. But they've still delayed it. They've still stopped working on it because they're degenerates. They've said, well, we've organized a committee to figure out the best way forward, and that's why there's a delay. Yeah, that's why there's a delay. Okay, during the exclusive interview with host Maria Bartiromo, Trump blasted President Biden for excluding the border crisis from his address, which is totally fair. He didn't discuss the border. The former president told Bartiromo when asked what struck him about Biden's speech Wednesday night. I mean, obviously, he didn't discuss the border. He looks terrible. The border's like the worst policy thing that he's done. It's the worst thing it's the biggest scandal of his presidency so far, which is saying something because Biden's a criminal. All right. He didn't discuss the border. The president. Okay. Trump pointed out that tens of thousands of people are pouring into the country at a level that's never been seen before. Well, I mean, we know all this. So this is all basically just filler. It's amazing how reporters can fill an entire story with stuff that is totally irrelevant to the subject. But anyway, so that's a kind of a short one. We won't go too much into that. But I thought that was news that needed to be covered and brought to your attention. Yeah. Unless something goes terribly wrong or somebody else becomes a big superstar in the conservative the Republican Party, it looks like DeSantis will probably be Trump's running mate. Who knows? But it looks like that's possible. One thing that I think could possibly be a problem for Donald Trump is that Ron DeSantis is very, very charming. He's very charismatic. He says what he thinks. He's a bold person. And typically, in my experience, I mean, if you look back through time at all the presidents and all of their vice presidents, you got people like Reagan, right? Reagan, very charismatic guy. Who's his vice president? George H.W. Bush. George H.W. Bush was not a particularly charismatic person. Now, an argument could be made that, Ronald Reagan was encouraged to bring on George H.W. Bush as a vice president because he was the former head of the CIA, and he was a kind of a swamp dweller, right? He's one of the deep state folks. Like, he was a guy that was an establishment person that Ronald Reagan maybe needed somebody like that to get the GOP endorsement, to get the help of the establishment to become elected. But nevertheless, he was still good for Ronald Reagan in the fact that he never could possibly overshadow him. Not a chance, And then when you got somebody like, I don't know. Well, okay, let's move on to Bill Clinton, right? The next president. Al Gore, again. I mean, he used to be called like a cardboard cutout. The guy was so boring. I mean, he was like, you could have put a cardboard cutout there most of the time and nobody would have noticed there was a difference. He was that boring. And if you go to, I think the only exception to this so far in all the cases in my lifetime would be Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. Kamala Harris is far more, I think, has far more of a stage presence than Joe Biden does. This is why they're constantly posting, stuff about Kamala Harris, and they're always slipping up and saying President Harris and saying stuff like that, right? I mean, also, I think that they expect that eventually she's going to be president, but I mean, she's just got such a much more, she's got a lot more energy. She's got such a much bigger stage presence. She's just got a bigger presence generally. She's louder. She's more annoying. She's in every way. She draws more attention than Biden does. Biden is just, I mean, Biden. Weekend at Biden's. But anyway, DeSantis may be have a little bit too much personality. He might have a little bit too much gravitas. He might be too bright a shining light. He would never eclipse Trump, I don't think. I mean, if Trump would I would encourage Trump to bring in DeSantis because it would be just like another juggernaut on his team. I mean, Trump is the biggest thing in the Republican Party since Reagan. I mean, he's huge. Nobody's ever going to eclipse Trump. All right. So you don't really have to worry about that. But still, I think that is the tendency for a charismatic, big name like Trump not to want to be overshadowed in any way whatsoever. That's why he picked somebody like Mike Pence, right? Super boring Mike Pence. And that's how charming presidents work. They bring on boring people, right? That's why Obama grabbed Biden. Biden was, styrofoam. He was nothing. He was useless. So Will he pick DeSantis? I would love it if he did, but there is that charisma problem. DeSantis might be too good to be vice president. All right, next story. What do we have for the next story? Let's look. I don't remember. Oh, this is my... okay, so this is Ashley's pick that she wanted to do. All right, it's a good story. It's an interesting thing, and there's a lot of parallels. The reason I really want to cover this, there's a lot of parallels to what's going on in politics today. So story number 2, unsealed Soviet archives reveal cover-ups at Chernobyl before the disaster. Before the disaster. That's the important thing here. Let's go ahead and switch. Oops, let's go. All right, so this is the story from the Epoch Times. Unsealed Soviet archives reveal cover-ups at Chernobyl plant before disaster. Kiev, the Soviet... So now, one of the points that Ashley wanted me to make when she recommended this story... Ashley's the person that... Toxic Masculinity. Weekdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.